and welcome back to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have an inspiring guest whose journey of healing, self-discovery will resonate with many of you, including myself. Joining me today is Mike, a man who, after facing a series of life-changing events, turned to nature to find inner peace and rebuild his life. Nature is a beautiful thing in itself, and so I'm super excited to have Michael talk about this a little bit. Following a difficult divorce that left him feeling lost and adrift, Michael realized he needed a profound change. He decided to take an extended sabbatical from work and embarked on a solo backpacking trip in the mountains. Immersed in the tranquility of the wilderness, he found the calm and clarity that had eluded him for so long. Hiking through lush forests, sleeping under the stars, and embracing the simple beauty of his natural surroundings helped lift his anxiety and heartache. The resilience of nature reminded him of his own inner strength, and by the time he emerged from the backcountry, Michael felt renewed with peace, purpose, and optimism. Today, we'll delve into Michael's journey, explore the concept of wilderness meditation, and discover what we can learn from the natural world about healing and living life to the fullest. If you ever felt overwhelmed by life challenges or sought a deeper connection with yourself or the world around you, this episode is going to be for you. So grab a seat, get comfortable, grab a juice box, grab a snack, and let me welcome Mike to the show. Mike, welcome to the Young Dad Podcast. Super excited to have you.
Jay, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to celebrating the journey and the experiences with you.
I love it, man. I'm looking forward to talking about it too. Nature's one of those things for like all of us that, well, everyone says they hike, right? And so it's something that everyone wants to connect with. Everyone wants to go and do more. Everyone wants to get out to and do it more. It's just whether it's a matter of time, it's a matter of effort, it's a matter of actually doing it and, dropping the excuses, actually getting out and connecting with nature, connecting with the earth as we can. We're given this great, big, beautiful planet, so I'm really excited to jump into it with you today. So I start with kind of a big question to start off every episode. But before I do that, I just want to shout out the beat that we heard at the beginning of the podcast. If you're listening, if you're on audio, you heard the beat. That's from the Podbeat app. You can download Podbeat for free. Turn any podcast or audiobook into a musical experience. Fantastic. But so that's that. What's a hill that you're willing to die on when it comes to finding inner peace and helping others live life to the fullest?
I'm going to steal a quote from Daniel Boone on this one. And the fact that no matter how you feel, we are never truly lost. God never created anybody without a purpose. And regardless of the things that you go through in life, it's never too late to find that purpose. It's just a matter of centering and finding connection.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Even, we can even look in the Bible and we can see that too, right? You mentioned God. We mentioned in Jeremiah 29, this is like a passage that I've been stuck on recently and just rather obsessed with this last week. It just keeps coming up and everything. So it's not a coincidence, but so basically in Jeremiah 29, the people of Jerusalem are exiled for 70 years. And so they're feeling lost, they're feeling down, they're feeling hopeless. And then in a letter that Jeremiah writes from the Lord, it's basically saying, continue to have hope, do the things that I say, and I'm going to deliver you from this. I'm going to give you back way more. So continue to find your purpose, continue to put your trust in me. You may be exiled, but you're not lost. I'm going to give you so much more back. Just trust me, and better things are to come. And there's a Will Smith quote that I like too. Well, there's actually this Will Smith video. It came up I found it after my divorce, and it was talking about fear and talking about how the greatest things in life are on the other side of terror. The greatest things in life are on the other side of the things that you're scared of right now. Whether that's, starting over, whether that's moving on, whether that's taking a risk, taking a chance, doing something different, doing something new. That initial fear that we feel is so, we hype it up so much, right? We hype it up and it gets overhyped. And then we come back to it and we do the thing anyways, and we get through the thing and we look back and we're like, wow, I wasted so much time being scared when I wish I would have just taken that step and gone forward anyway.
I think it's actually a matter of, with fear, the fact that one of our greatest assets, and the only thing that we're the only ones on this earth that can do it, is tell stories. That story of self-suffering is so comfortable for us because it removes the responsibility of the journey, right? That way we just kind of feel like we're guided and we're going through and we're doing all these things we're taught through life. But when you turn around and you change that vocabulary to something that actually puts the responsibility on your shoulders, you realize that that fear that we're afraid of is actually a lesson. It's actually a place that we can step into and really test ourselves, find out who we are, and ultimately discover our truest purpose. One of the quotes that I really fall back on is from Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations, where he's talking about all these horrible things that have happened to him. And in the very next sentence, he goes, I don't wish those things never happened. I'm grateful that they happened because it gave me an opportunity to prove who I am. And on top of that, nobody can deal with those things the way that I have.
Yeah, no, and I love that you brought up that part of the past, right? We'll jump into meditation here in a second, but we so often think, right? People think, fathers think in general, man, I wish I could have just gone back and done things differently. Oh man, I wish I could have done this different. Oh man, I wish I could have done this differently. Man, all the shoulda, woulda, coulda. They're always gonna be there. Like the shoulda, woulda, couldas will always 1000% be there. But it's exactly like you're saying. We can't go back and change them, but we have the opportunity to learn from them, to change our narrative going forward, to change our story going forward, to learn from those things, to do things differently. And I think that's one of the coolest things just about life in general is that those experiences that we had that we may or may not want to change are for our betterment to where we are today. They all built us into the character that we are today. No one wishes that they go through those things. Maybe some people do. If you're cynical and crazy a little bit, maybe I don't know. But most people don't wish for the bad things to happen to them that have happened to them. But it's an experience that isn't exactly for ourselves, right? It's an experience that we have to more than likely help someone else that'll come along our path, that'll have gone through the same thing at some point, that we have already experienced, we already dealt with, and now we have the opportunity to help them. The things that we struggle with typically are our struggle to teach us how to handle them so that we can help someone else down the line. And I think that's a really cool how all that life works, how it all connects in one big story, right? It all connect together.
That's where that circle of energy and that finding the ability to ground yourself and see your place in the world really comes in. Because, my story and my work is a lot of that because I went through the first chunk of my life just kind of chasing what I was taught. You're looking for the results in everyday life, and every time you screw up, you beat yourself down for it. I hit my second divorce, and I found myself trying to take my life. I woke up the next day and realized that something had to change. And there's a great Lakota story about that evolution because we all go through chasing those things, feeling kind of lost and insignificant, right? And a long time ago, there was this child that was born to a man and a woman. They tried for many years, and he was the only child that they finally had later in life. His name was Isno. And as he grew up, he he learned how to hunt and how to be a warrior and do all those things, but he was never anything special. It was really weird how he could walk through camp and no one would acknowledge him. In fact, as he got older in life, he never even gained a war father or anything. Then, after his parents passed away, he started feeling extremely alone. Eventually, he won a wife, but even then, he was still alone. He still felt insignificant. And because of that, he spent a lot of time in the woods and got to know the land very intimately. Down the line, him and his wife had a child. They had a daughter who turned out to be everything that he wasn't. She was very popular, very well known, and all those things. And he thought the only purpose he had was to be a part of bringing her into the world. But then he come back from one of his hikes, and all the men of the camp were off on a war party. The next day, a scout came back and told the people in the village that there was a rival war party heading their way. And they didn't know what to do because the only ones in the village were children, women, and old men, and they could only move so fast. This war party was on horses, so they'd take them very quickly. Well, Isno, because he had the intimate knowledge of the land, he went out, he told the village of a butte that they could get to within a day and they'd be protected because it was very difficult to climb. So they decided to follow Isno's plan and they only moved as fast as the slowest person could go. They finally got up the butte, set up, and the next day the war party showed up and couldn't make it up that butte based off of how hard it was to climb, and with the old men shooting arrows at them, they turned around and left. When their war party returned, they told them about what Isnell had done. And because of that, they celebrated him. They gave him a new name. His new name became Good Trail because his life had taken a turn for the good on this trail, and he knew all the trails. So the whole point of the story is the fact that even though we're going through all the things that we face, whether we like them or not, they are giving us our purpose. And it's something that we lose sight of in today's fast-paced world. So taking that time to reflect on things and really look within and the way that all these things are impacting you, they have such an important part of your purpose.
No, I love that story. I think that's perfect, right? All the little things that happen to us, they all transform us into who we're meant to be. And our time might not be now. Our time could be later. Our time could have already happened. Or our time's still happening in real time, and we may just not realize it, just because of how fast the world moves. But for you, for your story, for your experience, how the heck did you get into wilderness meditation? What got you to that point of wilderness meditation? You mentioned a little bit, but I kind of want to hear the story.
All right, so the outdoor part, that's a given. I grew up chasing my grandfather on all his adventures. Then, later down the road came that second divorce and the suicide attempt. When I tried to get right, I got into talk therapy. And one of the very first sessions, it's hilarious because my therapist brought up the idea of meditation. I argued with her. I was like, I'm not going to shave my head and sit still and buy the chant CDs, all that stuff. It ain't me. Then I went out back afterward and I picked up my crossbow and started doing my nightly practice, and it hit me. It was like I'm doing every single thing that meditation involves, and I like it. I enjoy it. And then afterward, thinking about it, I'm like, I kind of feel like if somebody sees me sitting here meditating, they're going to make fun of me, right? So I got to find a place that's safe for me. There's nowhere safer than the great outdoors. Nothing within the great outdoors has the time to tell a story or pass judgment. They don't have the ability. So for me, I kind of put the two together, started hiking down around the Ohio Valley. And down there, there's a bunch of these mountains. They come from the Hopewell and Andina cultures. And I started sitting on those places because they were very special and important to them. And I started meditating on those. And as I started doing that more and more, I started having these really unique kind of experiences where it was like it was starting to pull all that negative stuff out of the story. And it was starting to change the self-talk. And as that self-talk shifted, it opened up the door to where I find myself nowadays.
Love that. How did immersing yourself into nature, being in the mountains, how were there any specific like moments or experience that were particularly transformative to you?
This is where, again, it gets pretty interesting because I'm very skeptical about all the spiritual stuff, right? Well, I got up to one particular mound and I sat down and I started meditating, and I could feel a presence sitting next to me. And that presence started kind of poking at me a little bit, and, kind of drumming up all those questions that I know are there, all those things that I don't want to deal with. And it started to pull those things out of me. It started to teach me the idea of forgiveness, forgiving myself, and realizing that, everything, even the mistakes that I made in life, were made with the vocabulary and the understanding that I had at the moment. And I think that was one of the most fundamental shifts.
And so through that shift, that experience, what kept you going back? Like what did you start to discover about yourself? The more and more you did this, the more and more you were out there, the longer you were out there, the time that you spent on this backpacking trip, what things did you start to find about yourself that you knew were there, but like really started to manifest and like come to the forefront of like, this is what you're going to be, this is what you're going to do when you come out of it on the other side?
Well, I would have to say it was changing the narrative. The final thing that was said to my face was I had nothing to offer anybody, my family, my kids, anybody. And the way that I always tell people about it is I rebuilt the ability to shift that self-worth and self-value to believe that I had it one swing of a hatchet and one footstep at a time. Because when you get out onto some of the trails, especially in the mountains, there's lots of adversities that you have to face. There's lots of things that you have to overcome and that you have to do. 9 times out of 10, when you're caught up in that negative self-talk, you doubt every single thing that you're trying to do. You don't believe you can do it. Well, when you're out there in the field, you got no choice but to do it, but to figure it out. And as you do that, you start to build up what I call grip and grin moments, successes that become your track record. They're viable things that you can see and think about and say, yeah, well, you're thinking I'm this, but I achieved, I did that.
No, I love that. So grip and grin moments, what, so those are the successes or like the moments of like overcoming, pushing through, resilience? Like what exactly are those labeled grip and grin moments for you?
Well, I took it from the idea in the outdoors, every time we catch a big fish or, we take down an animal, we get a big smile on our face and we take a picture with it, so we can look back at it. And, I know thinking back, there's been days where I had, a hunt or a fishing trip scheduled that I didn't feel like going. And I look on the wall and I see that picture and I say, man, I got to go. I got to get that next picture. And it is the equivalent of success.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what kind of things? No, I guess I kind of asked that already. I could ask more about what can like, so being in nature, having this experience for you, sounds like there was just a lot of self-discovery through it. Like you were able to take it and enjoy the quiet and to really find yourself. And there's something about that quiet that I wanted to mention here. Something I heard recently too. It's I'm trying to think of exactly what it was. But being able to sit in the silence can be incredibly powerful, right? Where you can just learn to sit there, silent, no distractions, nothing, and just really invite for me, I would call it the spirit of God to come and talk to you, to come and into your mind, into the forefront, into your heart, whatever you may feel it may be. But it takes a lot to get to those silent moments, right? It can take a lot to get there every day, right? Especially having kids, having a family, it's hard to find those opportunities in silence to disconnect, to unplug, and you really have to make them. But in that silence, that's when the best things come, right? When we can have that silence, when we can listen, really truly listen, and feel and connect with our creator in those ways. And there's something just really powerful about that. But we have to go, out of our way to find them, to create those silent moments. They do have to be manufactured. Occasionally they'll happen naturally to where we'll kind of be forced into that situation to stop and to go and listen because that's what, the path that we've been put on will take us. But a lot of times we have to manufacture them and we have to find them and we have to cycle through them. And so what kind of things did you gain just from watching and encountering and observing the cycles of nature while you were in the wilderness on this backpacking trip? Like what kind of things did you learn from just watching and observing?
The power of observation is the most powerful tool that we have. And at the beginning of the hike, I remember kind of still being caught up in my old frame of mind where going in the outdoors was about going, getting a result, coming back. because I didn't necessarily like the idea of not having control of the thoughts that would come up. And the stillness then was caught up with the idea of the negativity of getting noticed by an animal, right? Because then you blow your shot. And as I went through that trip and I started actually spending time really in stillness, I feel like the mindset was the biggest change because it went from actually, well, if you move, you're going to get caught, to if you sit still, the world is going to start to move about as if you weren't there. You're going to see things. And that leads into a hunt that I experienced a couple years back where leading up to it, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. I was really struggling with it. And this hunt in particular was on November 15th, which, if you're familiar, is the height of the deer rut. And on that particular day, it was cold, miserable, snowing, and I'm standing there. I hadn't seen anything all morning, and then finally this big, beautiful buck comes out. I ended up naming him Longhorn. And I had this rule that I hold myself to. If I don't have a connection with the animal, meaning I've had to see it at least one other time before I'll draw on them, then they get a pass because I want to have that experience. And I'm standing there in that tree. I'm thinking, dude, it is cold, it is miserable. I could get this over with and, go home and warm up. But I'm not shooting, so what am I doing? Because I call myself a hunter. And I'm standing there observing him and I'm realizing, here we are, the height of the rut. Longhorn is out doing his job. He has all these instincts to be afraid of everything. But he's making these mistakes looking for a doe because in the back of his mind, he can trust himself. He knows that if he encounters danger or a life-threatening situation, he's got the skills to at least make an effort to get out of it. And when I thought about it from that frame of mind, an anxiety attack, it feels like life and death at the moment, right? It's really not, but we got that struggle. And if Longhorn can achieve doing his job, what in reality can hold me back, considering that most of the story is just caught up and made up in my own mind?
Yeah. No, and I think that's so true, especially for us men, right? It's hard. It can be difficult for us to let go, right? To not get caught up in all the things all at once, and to have those anxiety attacks. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Inside Out 2 does a great job of kind of depicting what that looks like with that anxiety. They introduce anxiety and some other emotions in Inside Out 2. And I love how they depicted anxiety, just myself being a mental health clinician. There's an anxiety attack that happens while Riley, the main girl, is at a hockey tournament and she's really struggling and she feels like she's failing everybody at the same time. And it's all really getting to her and it all just overcomes her when she's in the penalty box. She spaces out, she's grabbing her hair, she's freaking out, right? Like she knows she can get out of it. She's trying to, but her heart's racing, her mind is literally going crazy. Inside of Riley's brain where the emotions are, there's the anxiety that's like going all over the table. It's like a storm inside of her brain. And, the only thing that can come to it is herself, but her own joy has to come and calm her down. So we have to pull out that own joy of ourselves to calm ourselves down in those moments. Like we have the ability, we have the tools, we have the skills, we've been through it before. We're able to do that to ourselves. But it takes that ability, that self-talk to be at a place to where it can pull us out of it until it just will naturally calm down. If we want to pull ourselves out of it sooner, we have to, pull ourselves down. But um, that's when we have to take those moments to connect and to realize we have the tools, we can get out of it. We're out here doing things we need to do, but at the same time, we have to. Where was I going with that? I totally lost it. I got thinking of Inside Out, and then I lost it. But did you end up bagging Longhorn? That was my question. That going to be my next question.
No, I haven't made it back there yet. That
Okay.
was that was quite the adventure to get out there. It was a distance to get to that spot, so I just kind of let it be. I figure maybe next year I'll get back that way.
I like it. I like it. Okay. So, for your opinion on this one, we live in such a wild and crazy freaking world. Like literally, the news cycle feels like it's a 30-minute news cycle. Like something happens and then it's off the news for 30 minutes and something else happens. 30 minutes, something else happened, and our news cycle moves so quickly, it's hard to keep up. If you plug in one day and then you unplug for a couple days, you're gonna feel like you missed a ton of stuff. And but if you are constantly plugged in, it feels like it can very easily lead to overwhelm and feeling like I want to disconnect from this, but I'm afraid if I disconnect from this, I'm gonna miss something. So then you have FOMO. But how important is it for the average person, the average father, to go out and disconnect and spend time in nature?
It's fundamental. I mean, I think back to the way life used to be where it was so fast paced, it was hard to keep up with, and you're running on robot mode. That drains your batteries really, really quick. It leads you to disconnect, to mask everything that you're uncomfortable with very, very easily. And ultimately you're not providing you. You know, you're not giving 110% where it counts. So I think to get outside, sit down and just ground yourself and observe the way that the world works, you know, in contrast to the fact that above us during the day there's the sun. You know, the sun heats the ground, which brings the vegetation up, and the vegetation feeds the animals. You know, from there, the animals and the vegetation and everything around us fuels us. And when you look at it in that sort of context, when you're sitting down grounded, you realize just how essential it is to offer all of you to the people that are most important to you, which then kind of gets you thinking about the idea of the word no and just how important that is. A lot of us feel guilt when we say no. But in reality, when you say no, when you say yes to that thing that comes up on your calendar you really don't want to do, you're saying no to so many things that you really want to do that are really important to be done.
Yeah. No, the power of no is like kind of crazy, right? When we think about it, we have to be able to prioritize and to say no and to put things away. And I 100% agree with you. I mean, we were created as part of nature. But back in Adam and Eve, they lived in the garden, right? And so our human biology is connected with nature. Who we are as people is connected to nature, connected to the animals, connected to the land, connected to this fundamental part of who we are. So I 100% agree with that. And so, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's looking to unplug and find some of this inner peace?
Easiest place to start is simply walk out into your backyard, go to a park, walk around your neighborhood. You know, I've been sharing stories about hiking mountains through the Ohio Valley and everywhere else, but that's not where you have to start. You know, it's an individual process that is uniquely for you. And when you step outside into your backyard, it gives you an opportunity to be honest, to really think about the direction that is going to work for you. And it also, as we've talked about so much, this idea of true authentic purpose. That's where the seed really starts with that.
Sorry, I was giving my oldest daughter something real quick. Uh,
Yeah, no worries.
yeah, her part of it, she was asking me for her phone so she can go lay back down for a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. To start with the park, start with your backyard. You gotta start somewhere, right? It's just like when you're starting to exercise. I tell people this all the time. Like you don't have to go and sign up for Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym or go and do those things, right? To start, because if you start there, that's a big place to start. That's a really big place. Like it's gonna be uncomfortable if the average person was like, oh, you know what? How much takes battle go into the wilderness? It takes a lot of prep, right? There's a lot of things that go into that and doing that. It doesn't just happen overnight, kind of thing. It can, but for the average person, that's not going to happen overnight. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start little. You have to get comfortable just doing the exercise or doing the being outside. And for exercise, that looks like maybe just go for a walk. Start really small. Start simple. Build up going outside 3 times a week for 10 minutes just to get that, air kind of thing. Or when you're on your lunch break at work, go and walk around outside. Rain, shine, slush, or snow, whatever. Go and walk outside for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, doesn't matter. Just go and start to get comfortable. with that, whatever that looks like, be comfortable with it. And so for you, fast forward, you're on the other side of this sabbatical and coming back. How did you approach the rebuild? Coming out of it, coming on the other side. How did you approach the rebuild?
Well, I think for me, it was a lot of isolation, definitely a lot of continuing that journey inward, and also relying my interest, things that I find entertaining as hobbies within the outdoors. But the other thing that was so important was the idea of consistency. And, it's funny because along that journey of consistency, there's a lot of self rewarding and celebration that needs to happen. For me, which is hilarious, is the fact that at the end of the day, it was a cup of coffee. I'd go through the day, and every time I'd come up to an event that I'd question myself, I'd think, as long as I get through this and I figure out a way to maintain, I'm going to get a cup of coffee on my way home. And, that's really, to me, one of the most important parts that I instill in people is that consistency, but also thinking ahead, beginning to prepare yourself for whatever you perceive may be coming up. It doesn't mean to sit and ruminate on those thoughts or allow yourself to really get caught up in the idea of self-suffering and anxiety and all these things that you perceive are going to happen. It's just a matter of spending a few minutes in a journal and writing them down, starting to make a plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important is that consistency and finding those things that you can look forward to every day. Because especially with the mental health challenges, you have to find something that will motivate you, that will keep you motivated. And it can be something as simple as a cup of coffee. It could be something as simple as your favorite candy bar from the gas station on your way home. It can be something, it could be a hot shower. You're going to take the hottest shower. You're going to take a really hot, nice, relaxing shower. That's going to be your reward kind of thing. Or, really whatever that looks like. But you have to have something every single day or after every one of those moments that you go and do something that's going to be uncomfortable or something that you have to go out of your way a little bit for, something that, warrants that reward. And you have to be able to measure those things and understand those things with yourself to be able to do them consistently, right? You have to know yourself well enough to be like, I know this is going to be really hard. I know I'm going to need a reward after this. This is going to be a little bit easier. I probably don't need it after this one. This one's kind of borderline, so I'm going to reward myself anyway because I can, kind of thing. We're adults. We have adult money now, so we can do what we want. And so since returning, what kind of things have you done to ensure that you continue living with like peace, purpose, optimism, and how have you like incorporated your nature practice and being in nature into like an everyday life?
It's funny because when we talk about purpose, we always end up finding it when we least expect it. And in the process, after returning, I founded Project Mindfully Outdoors, which is not just a podcast, but involves getting people out into the outdoor field with that mindfulness. And that's what I do for a living nowadays. So the fact that I've incorporated something that I truly enjoy into my line of work, that I give myself a pat on the back for, but it's just the fact that it holds my feet to the fire. Because a lot of, especially with the podcast aspect of it, and even thinking about it, the in-person stuff, social anxiety is something that I still struggle with a lot. And it holds my feet to the fire. It makes me do it. So then, afterward, I'll go out and I find whatever it is that works for me that day for the reward. But in order to get the inspiration to continue doing it, it's a matter of going out in the field, which, I naturally love and enjoy anyway. So to me, it's just building a system.
Yeah, no, that's important. As a, if you don't mind, what does your personal system look like? What kind of system have you built for yourself that works for you? Because everyone's going to be different, but having a framework or a blueprint for someone that does it every day, that lives it, speaks it, talks about it, What does that blueprint look like for you?
So I would go with there's grounding, there's time to celebrate. Those are fundamentals. And then as I've adapted from my youngest son, getting out and touching grass every day, getting out in the field and actually enjoying the experience, which gets back to that celebration and that being grounded. There's a lot of meditation that goes into a day that helps bring you into the present moment, gives you the space to learn to be comfortable living without those distractions or thinking too far ahead, and being ready to really employ yourself and your ability to whatever is facing you in that current moment.
Yeah. No, I love that.
And then on top of that, I keep things very simple. It's funny because during that divorce at the start of it, I was homeless, and not having like a TV and things like that around. As I got back on my feet, I found I never really reincorporated that into my life. I never really found that reconnection with it. Instead, it was more so with all these different practices that I've incorporated and learned along the way. And I think that's another huge part of it, is that willingness to evolve.
Yeah. No, we have to keep it simple, right? It's that old military acronym, KISS it. Keep it simple, stupid. And for men, we're very lucky that everything about us is pretty freaking simple. Like, we are very simple creatures, right? We're very complex at the same time because we're human beings. We have human emotions, and we still have all that, right? But the man brain is a very simple, not complex place, right? Where it can be, but it's not at the same time. I always describe a man's brain, to clients and whatnot, especially to kids and to like mothers of sons. I'm like, okay, for mom, your brain is like a spider web, right? A very beautiful, intricate spider web. If you ever zoomed in on a spider web, it crosses, it goes left, right, diagonal, all the different directions, right? It's just beautiful, it's complex, and it's all intertwined together. There's no gap. And so if you put a little electricity ball on it, it's just going to go, it's not going to go linear, right? It's going to go all around that spider web all the time. And that's a woman's brain. You never know where it's going to turn. And women, please don't take offense to this. This is just, how it works, how we talk about it in the mental health field. But then for a boy or a young man or a man in general, our brains are like a warehouse, right? A big, big warehouse. But we walk into this warehouse, there's one way in and there's one way out of this warehouse. We walk in, light switch is in the same spot every time. Turn on the light switch. And then it flicks on the light, and it's just row upon row upon row upon row of like metal racking. On that metal racking are boxes. Every box is lined up, organized. None of the boxes touch. That's very important. None of our boxes touch. So we walk into that warehouse. We go to the third row, fourth shelf on the left, grab a box, pull it down, open the box, play with the box. Yeah, we're done with the box. Close the box, put the box up, move on, go down a few rows, play with the next box. And that's how our brain works, more or less. We're pretty simple in that way. And so we have to play with our boxes, right? Go and touch grass. That's a box that we're playing with. We're creatures of habit, we're creatures of routine, but we're also very simple at the same time. But there's things that we have to do, we have to incorporate. And I don't know exactly where I was going to go with that, but I had a point to it, and I think I missed the point, but that's okay. But it's important that we keep up on those boxes, and we keep up on those day-to-day things, and we incorporate those daily practices, because habits are everything, right? Habits are everything. And we know when we're out of habit, we know when we're out of sync, and it's very hard to rebuild habits when we lose them. It can be very easy to, go a few days and like, I did it for the last few days anyway. I feel fine, kind of thing. That's where we start to slip, right? That's where we start to see the downfall. It's like, no, I know these things are so important to me. I need to get back into them. It can be hard to get back into them. We really have to find that motivation. And sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it's beyond us. But when we do those things, we instantly feel so much better, right? There's things that just connect in our brains, connect with our hands, connect with our bodies, our spirit. That felt good. That felt so good. It felt so relieving. If you haven't gone to the gym for a few days, as an example here, you go and you're like, this feels so great. just feels so good kind of thing to return and get back into it, get the blood flowing. In this example here that we're talking about, nature. If you don't go into the grass for a few days, if you don't ground yourself for a few days, you're gonna feel a lot of whack. Right? You're gonna know something's missing, something's off. What the heck is it? You're gonna go, you're gonna touch grass, you're gonna ground yourself. You're like, oh, that's it right there. That's how your brain's trained, right? That's gonna feel really good. And, it's really important to find those things that you can do to start your own practice and to to start. Right? You have to start. So you have to find the things and how to start. What's going to be important to you? Where is going to be important for you to start? Last question here. Well, not last. We're not done yet, Mike. Sorry. But what kind of advice would you offer to someone like feeling lost or just seeking that like fresh start to where they really need it? Maybe they were in the same place that you were. Maybe they weren't. But like, what advice would you offer someone that's just feeling lost and just want a fresh start?
So, honestly, I would go with the fact that where you feel like you're at right this moment, it's only a moment in time. And there's actually a meditation that I really enjoy guiding people through in this kind of practice, because you can look up at the sky on almost any given day and actually see a visual reminder. If you got a few extra minutes, I'd love to walk you through it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think this is something that everybody can gain something great out of. So whenever you're ready, feel free to just simply close your eyes and then start to notice your breath. Where do you feel it the strongest at? Do you feel it in your stomach as your diaphragm extracts, or do you feel it perhaps underneath your nose as you inhale and exhale? Maybe it's your lungs. Wherever it is, gently guide your attention there and just sit with your breath for just a few minutes. And as those thoughts start to kind of drift in and out of your mind and run around, I want you to start thinking about the sky on a nice cloudy day where you can see the shape of the clouds and you can see them move in and out of your vision, because those clouds, they're pushed back and forth by the jet stream, which is a part of Mother Earth. And if you bring that thought inward into your mind, you represent Mother Earth in that jet stream. Because each one of your thoughts, you can visualize on one of those clouds in the sky. And what I'd like you to do is bring the closest cloud forward and just look at the thought that's sitting on that cloud. Ask yourself, with a little bit of curiosity, why is that thought on top of that cloud? What is it asking of you? What is it requiring you to do? What does it need from you in order to no longer be on top of that cloud? And as you sit and ask yourself those questions, when you're ready, you can push that cloud away. That thought can drift away with that cloud. And then you can bring forth the next cloud or thought and repeat the process as many times as you need. And as you're moving through the next coming few days and you see the clouds overhead, you can simply remind yourself that you have that same power and control over your thoughts as that jet stream that's moving those clouds through your vision. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes.
I like it. That was cool.
A little bit of a compressed, time arranged thing, but I mean that's the very concept of it, right there is one of the key things to meditation, and one of the key things to trying to move from feeling horrible within your own mind to getting out of that hole, is remembering that regardless of what's going on, you have a decision to make. That decision that you make is what's going to get you through on that cloud to the next moment. A weather system, or even seeing a deer or another animal come through. They show up and then they're gone. And that's exactly how our thoughts and our feelings work. When you step out, regardless of where it's at, and you have a seat You feel Mother Earth underneath you supporting you. You realize that just like the reason that we have a hunting system in North America to control the carrying capacity, we're the same way. You just can't see the things that are dragging you down. They're in your invisible backpack. And a lot of that accumulates because of the idea that we don't want to forgive ourselves. We beat ourselves up. Another great visual, next time you go to the store, walk through the fruit section. Check out the strawberry. You know why it looks like a heart? Is because Native Americans believe that that's a representation of forgiveness. It's a reminder that it's okay to forgive yourself and to let things go.
Beautiful. I know that. Learn things. Learn things. I love when I get to learn new things and understand different parts of culture and things like that, and hear stories and whatnot. It's one of my favorite parts about doing this. Being able to learn new ways to meditate and to gain that one. I definitely get to use that one with some of my kids that I work with, that I think I'll resonate with it. And because for me, what that looked like in my head is that it kind of felt like Mario a little bit, like with the clouds. So you're jumping on the clouds in Mario a little bit. So
Yep.
that's why that's kind of where my head was. That's kind of where my visual went. And I'm just like bouncing on these clouds, but I'm also like seeing the clouds and I could like punch them out. And then they would go, ooh, kind of thing. And they would twirl away. Then I could pull the next one. I felt myself being able to pull that next one down. Be like, okay, what is this one? Let me get rid of this one. I don't need this one, kind of thing. And it was just like a rotation of these clouds, just like pulling the next one. It was really cool to see that one, but it kind of felt like Mario. I don't know why, but it did. It was like Mario, but it was cool, and I really liked it. But it's important. We have to be able to let things go. We have to be able to move on. We have to be able to control our thoughts. We have a choice each and every single day. Everything we do, we're in control. We have a choice. You have a choice to be able to be in control and to do those things. So it's super important. But in the moment, I want to tell you guys about two things that are going on with the Young Dad Podcast. We have a great website, youngdadpod.com, for you to check out. You can find all the things there. You can join us over on Reddit in our Young Dad Talk subreddit. But we're also part of the Podmatch podcast network, to where if you want to become a guest, if you're a podcast host, you can find amazing guests just like Mike, or you can find amazing guests like myself or other podcasts to be on and things like that. It's really cool. I love the Podmatch network, being a part of the podcast network, Podmatch podcast network. So it's really cool. Great service for you guys to use. You can know that I referred you. Go to the link in the description of this episode. It's at the very, very bottom of the description. And you can become a guest. You can sign up on your own podcast as well. It's a great way to support the podcast in itself. So love that. It happens. Well, technical difficulties be what they are. It is what it is. I was so happy to have Mike today for sharing his inspiring journey with us today. His story is a powerful reminder of the healing power of nature and the importance of reconnecting with ourselves and the world around us. For our listeners who want to learn more about the wilderness meditation or connect with Michael, please go ahead and go down to the show notes and see the way to connect with him via social media or via his different social medias and things that he offers. Mike would like you guys to go to try to subscribe to his newsletter if that's something you're into, which is projectmindfullyoutdoors.co. I'll be sure to link that in the description of the episode. So subscribe to the daily newsletter, where Mike offers the equivalent of a free book each day designed to foster an outside-the-box mindset, meditation, and immersion in nature, aiding your personal growth in healing. Great way to further connect with Mike and to follow along and support that man. So thank you all for tuning into the Young Dad Podcast. Remember, sometimes the path to inner peace starts with a single step into the great outdoors. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.